recycling should be the end of the chain, not the beginning. It should be recycling is an absolutely appropriate route for the stuff that's damaged and isn't safe to be reused and doesn't have a second life. But the second life should take priority over the recycling path. If you've got something that you no longer need and your neighbor can make use of it, why would you burn it in your garden rather than give it to your neighbor? Find people better than you at the parts of the job that you don't enjoy doing. Grow the team with people that are ethically and emotively aligned with your vision, rather than just someone who's a crackpot salesperson or a brilliant X, Y, or Z. How you spend money is important. And if you can spend that money and be 10%, 15%, 20% more socially impactful whilst getting the products or services that you would have been buying anyway, then to me, that's a no-brainer.
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much for joining us today on today's episode of the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes, I'm Michael Amos. I wear several hats, but my two main hats, I'm the managing director of a social enterprise and charity called Waste to Wonder, and I'm also the chair of trustees of our UK registered charity.
So what does Waste to Wonder do? What problem does it work to solve?
So we've in 20 plus years, we've never quite nailed the elevator pitch, but I'll do my best. I've always said if you're in the Burj Khalifa and you're going up 170 floors or whatever, I can probably do it. So our core service is a managed project management function. So we work with large organizations to redistribute their redundant furniture and equipment. So a lot of corporate furniture and equipment, and also hospitality furniture and equipment to support schools and charities locally and internationally. So it's a waste minimization and a social impact project management function. And then at the back end, we are obviously a UK registered charity. The role of the charity is to engage with recipient organizations locally and in the developing world to find a home for items that companies regularly get rid of that we know is far too good to just simply chuck into skips.
So turn your old furniture into charitable good.
Yeah, Waste to Wonder. That's sort of the genesis of the name, really. Yes. Well, I mean, the principle, I suppose, founding of Waste to Wonder was waste minimization. It was, this stuff is way too good to chuck away. Surely someone can make use of it. And the extension to that was actually us engaging with recipients who were obviously delighted to receive the furniture. They're getting the furniture donated, but actually then the ripple effects, the downstream impact, because they're not spending money on furniture, they can spend money on whatever their core social impact is that they deliver, whether that's social work or healthcare or education or whatever. So the social impact piece was something that we became aware of secondary to the waste minimization piece, but it's very much taken the lead. And it's, as I say, we're a social enterprise. So our core focus is who we can help with the equipment that we're diverting from waste.
How did it start? Was it like an idea that you had on like the back of a napkin one day? Was it like an organic growth? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was it was an extension of traditional move management. So my father-in-law had a move management company, relatively small one outside of Bristol. And there was a large project that was being tendered for a British Petroleum. They had a big site in Hemel Hempstead. The site's still there, but we were clearing. The tender was to clear about 800 seating positions worth of furniture. Lots of companies were bidding for that work. It was obviously quite a large, prestigious project. And the approach that we took, which was different to any other approach at the time, because historically in clearances, everything just went to landfill. Certainly 22 years ago, this was the case, was that we would try and donate as much as possible without giving any sort of guarantees of what that percentage or split was going to be. But we would try and donate as much as possible, and we would recycle everything else. So it was as I say, it was a green solution rather than a sort of leaning into the social impact of the solution. BP, I guess, called our bluff, awarded us the project. And then I had the unenviable task to try and find a home for what amounted to about 40 container loads worth of furniture. So 800 desks, 800 pedestals, 800 chairs, hundreds of cupboards. And I, over sort of 3 months, rang every school and charity in the yellow pages, or yell.com as it was. We've got some great furniture. You can have as much as you need free of charge. And we got rid of a lot, but it was slow. So it was 10 chairs, 5 cupboards. It was slow going, but the impact was happening. And then we were introduced, whether it's serendipity or divine intervention, you can decide, but to the head of education for the University of Marrakesh in Morocco. He ran a charity that was addressing a need where young women who didn't have a male relative, who didn't live in the major city centres, if there was no secondary school in their community, they weren't allowed to travel unaccompanied. So their education would stop after primary school. So he was identifying underutilized government buildings and then converting them into secondary schools so that young women could continue their education. So we were introduced to him. We said, look, we've got some fantastic furniture. You can have the furniture for free if you can fundraise for the shipping costs. He phoned back 2 weeks later, and if he had said, can I have 2 container loads worth, that would have been a huge success because, as I say, we were getting rid of them in 5s and 10s. This would have been 2 container loads worth of furniture redistributed in one hit. What actually transpired is the King of Morocco agreed to fund what all the containers that we had remaining, which was about 17 containers at the time. So the first 17 containers went out internationally. We then coined the phrase school in a box being the 40-foot container. And they went out to, 1 container went to each school. So the 17 schools were equipped with furniture. We've now done over 1,500 school in a box shipments to 44 countries. So we sort of started big on that first project, and then continued to refine and learn lessons and make mistakes, but fail quickly, I think is the phrase they use. So we didn't make the mistakes more than once, and continue to sort of grow that social impact and that international reach.
So you've said before that people aren't Googling ethical redistribution. So when a new prospect finds you, what do they think they need, and how do you shift that perception?
Yeah, great question. So historically, we're fighting 2 awareness battles. The first is from a corporate perspective, they've procured this stuff as an asset, they've maintained it as an asset, and then for some reason it shifts into being considered a redundant waste product. So they look for a waste solution. So they'll and obviously most large organizations are environmentally aware, if not socially aware. So they are looking for sustainable solutions in terms of how do I recycle my furniture. But what they're not doing is assuming, or they're not having the baseline that someone can reuse it. Their baseline or their assumption is no one needs it. So part of what we do is educate the market that yes, there is absolutely a need for this, and we can facilitate the redistribution of that, and then demonstrate what the social impact and all the wonderful things are that are being delivered as a result. The second is because the historic model was everything go to landfill. You clear it out of the building, goes to landfill. More recently, that has evolved to being what a lot of our, I guess, competitors is the wrong word, because our traditional competitors are the move management logistics companies, and they, almost all of them, have a zero to landfill approach. So they'll clear everything, not send anything to landfill, but what they do with it is they'll either sell it, refurb it, they might give some away, but most of it, 95% of it by volume, will go for recycling. And in our view, recycling should be the end of the chain, not the beginning. It should be, recycling is an absolutely appropriate route for the stuff that's damaged and isn't safe to be reused and doesn't have a second life. But the second life should take priority over the recycling path. So they're the two sort of main, I suppose, challenges that we face. We've been around, as I say, for over 20 years. So we're definitely a scale up, a slow burn scale up rather than a startup. But we do an awful lot. So we donate over 2,500 tons of furniture and equipment to schools and charities annually. That's roughly 10 times the volume that the 3 largest logistics companies in the UK donate through their sort of charity sort of endeavors. But it's still a tiny, tiny, tiny drop in the ocean of how much corporate waste is generated every year. So, and every year, over the last 22, 23 years, someone has said to me, probably multiple times in the year, I wish I'd known about you 6 months ago, because we just chucked 700 desks into skips. So that is still the bane of my life. At every trade show, at every event, I say, I wish I'd known about you 3 months ago. I just chucked a load of stuff away. So yeah, raising the awareness and getting that baseline to be, it probably can be reused rather than it probably can't, I think is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. Your layman would know the 3 R's, like reduce, reuse, recycle. And there's obviously now the 7 R's, and it is about taking people from recycle up to reuse instead, or repurpose. And I think that's a really key thing, is keeping it in that value chain for a bit longer. The other one there was around the awareness battles. So and it's an interesting one, because there's only ever 3% of people in the market for your solution at one time. And it's about reaching them when they're at that point, right? So it's about being top of mind, it is about that brand awareness. And I think, to be fair, it's what a lot of companies tend to forget about, because when you're focused so much on marketing for the sake of growth, you tend to forget that brand awareness actually lowers the costs everywhere, and it keeps people top of mind. It makes everything else easier. How do you stop people from seeing you as just a clearance company then, like a waste management company, and anchor the real, I guess, value of what you do to them?
Yeah, I think our growth, we were always sort of the unsung partner in the relationships that we had. So we've always had direct clients, and we've had some big clients that we've done a lot of work with over the years, multi-sited international blue chip clients. We've done work for IBM for almost 20 years. I've done a load for Lloyd's Banking Group, and we've got some wonderful clients that we've done lots and lots of good things with. But where we've really the strategy for growth for us has been partnerships. So we've really expanded the number and quality of partners that we work with as our route to market. We've realized that as a relatively small team with a relatively niche, although very important, service and solution, we were never going to get to the 97% instead of the 3% directly ourselves. So the way we did that is we started engaging really strongly with the facilities management community. So big facilities management companies like CBRE and Sodexo and Apleona and Mighty and Savills, people in that space who look after buildings for clients. So they are invariably, as part of their framework agreements, being tasked with managing the decants from buildings anyway. So we've obviously developed some really fantastic partnerships with them. We've also developed partnerships with the interior design and fit out and furniture manufacturing sectors. They're obviously providing new furniture and equipment, so they're well placed to ask the question earlier in the decision making process. By the way, what are you doing with your old furniture? Have you thought about ethical reuse? We've got a partner. So that has been fantastic, and that's obviously unlocked even more large enterprise accounts. The other thing at the back end, in terms of scale, is we've continued to put the effort into growing the breadth and quality and quantity of recipients. So even when we haven't got an active project, where we're constantly researching, engaging with skilling up or scaling up recipients, because receiving a container load's worth of stuff, it's a lot of furniture and equipment. We do get lots of charities now that come to us saying, I'd love a school in a box. And we're like, well, have you got people on the ground? Do you have your sort of import licenses in place? Are you a registered NGO charity? Obviously, that's one of the core provisions for us to be able to donate to them. What their social impact is. So what's your method statement? What is the impact that you're going to be, that you do? And what is how is our donation of equipment going to expand that? So we're working on that bit just as much as we are working on the commercial front end and the management to get the stuff out of buildings. So those two things hand in hand have been fantastic. We then have had situational stuff. COVID obviously completely changed the way that people were thinking about their corporate spaces, their commercial offices. There was a period where people didn't know whether we'd ever get back into offices, obviously in the early days of COVID. And then it was going to be, okay, well, the office is going to be very different. It'll be hybrid workspaces. It'll be hot desking. It won't be sort of just floors filled with furniture. Because prior to that, we have developed an international reuse capability. We were well placed to maximize charitable reuse. We'll exercise it because we don't know if we're going to get back in the office. But that meant there was a flood of furniture and equipment hitting the market. So the other logistics companies who traditionally sold some stuff, that was part of their reuse process. The market completely dropped out of secondhand furniture. Local schools and charities were all shut, so they weren't needing any furniture. So we had a lot of clients, big companies with big projects, come to us saying our existing incumbent suppliers have told us they can't do anything with the furniture because of COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Can you do anything with it? And of course we could, because international sea freight wasn't affected. So we saw a massive increase, which did a couple of things. Obviously, it was very good commercially for us, but it also unlocked next tier projects in terms of size. So historically, we regularly did projects of 60 to 80 seating positions. And a big project like the BP one, about 800 seating positions, was a big project. And we had several of those over the years, but they were sort of the pinnacle of the projects. From 2020 onwards, we've done projects for the Financial Conduct Authority with 3,500 seating positions, multiple projects for IBM over 2, 3, 4,000 seating positions. We've cleared the 2 towers for Citibank in Canary Wharf, over 8,000, so 22,000 furniture items with 100% reuse. So now we've got a reputation for not only being able to do it, but do it at a really big scale. And at the same time, 2018, 2019, we were also flirting with the idea of doing projects outside of the UK. So we'd piloted some projects in Europe, which we did. The projects, they went really well, but then we paused because of COVID and travel restrictions. And then, of course, because that mechanism was in place during COVID, and as the restrictions started being lifted, we're now doing projects across EMEA, across the Middle East. And we've just finished our first project in New York last week. That global reach has been really exciting as well.
Sounds it. What hasn't worked when it comes to growth and getting out into the market?
So the Middle East, we've got a bit of business in the UAE, and that came about because I spent a bit of time there in 2022 exploring the market, exploring the Middle East market. There was a lot of good things being said about sustainability. Saudi had a net zero pledge 2030. The UAE had the year of environment, or year of sustainability. They then hosted COP28. So we thought, okay, great. Well, this market is really starting to heat up, as it were. That's probably a bad pun given global climate change. But heat up in terms of sustainability awareness. So we went all guns blazing, registered the business out there, employed a BDM out there. The problem that we found is in the Middle East, waste is still very much an easy thing to do. Chucking things away, sending stuff for incineration, it's cheap. Whereas in Europe and in the UK and in other regions, there's been barriers put up by legislation to minimize waste. It's expensive to landfill stuff. It's expensive to recycle stuff. So we had a real cost comparison to go, well, actually, it's cheaper to do it through us in the UK and Europe. In the Middle East, it's still cheap, and they still have this sort of buy it, use it, chuck it mentality. So that's improving. But I think we were a little bit naive. I think we assumed culturally, given what was being stated at the senior levels, sustainability, that will have filtered down, and it hadn't yet filtered down. But that is progressing, and we've just been named as a Future 100 company in the UAE. So we're within the 100 most innovative companies in the UAE. And this is the first tranche. They've actually had a social impact category. So prior to that, it was all decarbonization and AI and deep tech and stuff like that. They've created a new subcategory within that. So we're the first within the first tranche of socially impactful Future 100 companies, which is quite cool.
That's great to hear. Well done. Is there anything that hasn't worked when it comes to awareness and getting out into the market for the corporate side?
No, because what we do is we're starting to get a real reputation. So a positive reputation. There are different types of reputations, and we are being seen as pretty much the only ones who can achieve really high reuse rates, regardless of project size. One of the fears that I had about going into the US market was the current political climate in terms of how DEI, how climate change is facing some pushback. So when we were going into the US market and really exploring that, our concern was, okay, well, maybe for the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a cold, desolate market for us because no one will want to do the right thing. The opposite's been true. They're still seeing the commercial benefits of doing it the right way. They're seeing the marketing and brand benefits of supporting schools and charities and young people with equipment that might otherwise have been wasted and stuff. So I've been pleasantly surprised with that feedback. Yeah, I was a little bit, again, I was reticent with the US at the current time because I thought, oh, they're not going to be interested, but actually they have been, so that's great.
I think there could be two sides to that, right? I think one is that people that actually want to make a difference, they can see what's happening at, I guess, a political level, and so they want to do more because they feel like they should. And I guess the other side of it is because sustainability has become a bit of a political football, whereas I feel like social impact and helping out your local community is still quite a charitable and, without using the word Christian thing to do, where you're helping your local community. And I can see why.
You're right, and it should be a no-brainer. If you've got something that you no longer need and your neighbor can make use of it, why would you burn it in your garden? rather than give it to your neighbor. Just from a humanity perspective, most people, will try and help someone out. I believe. I believe humans are fundamentally good. Fundamentally good, unless you're driven by greed.
Okay, so it sounds like you scaled quite quickly. Is there anything in the company that broke as you scaled that quickly?
We were really lucky that we grew capacity ahead of time. And this is particularly true of the reuse capabilities. So the number of charities that were reaching out to us and the number of charities that we were reaching out and identifying and researching is such that at any given time, really in the last 15 years, we've been probably operating at about 20% of capacity in terms of the need that we're currently supporting. By that I mean, if we had 10,000 seating positions, we could donate 50,000 if we had them to meet the recipients' needs. So that has been. I won't say that was specifically planned for. We did, as we were getting bigger projects, we knew that we had to keep pushing on that. We couldn't just rely on, we've got 7 charities that regularly receive from us, so that'll do. We knew that eventually we'd get a project that was too big for the number of recipients we had. So we just kind of kept that going. And then as a result, that pipeline and capacity and capability was already in place for when COVID hit and we had the sort of supercharging of equipment coming through. We're always limited by people, good people. Being an entrepreneur, I've got so many good ideas, but I've only got so many hours in the day, and you need sort of a really good, strong team who are passionately in the same wavelength about the mission and about what we're trying to do. And we've got that, and we've been really, really lucky. But of course, if you're a commercially successful business, I get bombarded by HR companies on LinkedIn and people sending me CVs and stuff like that. And you might be the best salesperson in the world, but you're not necessarily a good fit for Waste to Wonder, because we need people who they're doing it because they absolutely understand why we're doing it and what makes Waste to Wonder special, things like that. So finding people with passion and commitment is a challenge. We're lucky. We've been really lucky with the people that we have and the people that have been with us over the 2 decades. But that's always the challenge, because it slows down the people acquisition, because you have to filter through a lot of chaff to find the wheat.
You run quite a lean team, and I've seen that happening. Do you feel that, you mentioned there, it's held you back from, I guess, taking a couple of initiatives or driving forward a couple of projects? Do you feel that it makes you the bottleneck as the founder?
Not necessarily. My role has definitely shifted. My role, I was always the salesperson. We invested in the operations team and the comms teams and the website, and to have another extend the voice and stuff like that. My role now really is to try and obviously be a bit of a figurehead, but also to try and drive the movement forward. Obviously, becoming a social enterprise at the front end, I've become a passionate advocate for the social enterprise movement as a movement. So socially impactful businesses, doing good whilst being good. So my do a lot less sales calls now. Now it's more about the engagement on a broader audience. So, keynotes and running learning labs. I was in Austin, Texas a few weeks ago, running a couple of learning labs, on circular economy and spherical economies, because I don't want everything that I do to be an infomercial for Waste to Wonder either. Because I'm a little bit more self-effacing than that, and I'd find that a bit cringe. But also, I think that if I can improve the market awareness of just doing the right thing and critically thinking about what is and isn't waste and challenging that perception of waste, then that's obviously going to benefit Waste to Wonder anyway. And I'm happy. The market is enormous. The problem of waste is gigantic. So I'm more than happy that if the actions that I'm doing to move the needle in the right direction also supports other companies in our space, even if they're competitors, to be honest, that doesn't really bother me. We've been in our lane for 20 years. We're continuing to be in our lane and do really great things. But if more companies could do the right thing because there are more suppliers in the market, then great.
Are there any projects or initiatives that not being able to hire the staff for is stopping you from achieving?
Not really, no. We used to. So pre-financial crisis 2007, we used to have teams of fitters and porters. So we used to have
Hmm.
furniture. We also experimented with actually doing furniture installations for a couple of partners as well, where new furniture would be delivered into us, and then we'd go and install it within the client sites. Commercially, they kind of did okay, but they took a lot of focus away from the social impact stuff. So we decided to pull back from that. But when the financial crisis happened, we did have quite a large team. We were twice the size than we are now, and we're in that position to 2007, 2008, where companies, it's not that they didn't do the project, but they paused them for 6, 9, 12 months. Well, if you've got a pipeline that's delayed 6, 9, 12 months and you're a small company, sub-1 million pound a year turnover with warehousing costs and staffing costs and everything else, that really hit us. And we did have to contract the staff significantly. But the phoenix, I guess, from the ashes of that was we came out with a better understanding of what we are, in that we're not a logistics, move management, interior design, Cat A, Cat B fit out company. We are a specialist project management company that know how to get the stuff from A to B, and B could just as easily be a local school or charity, or it could be Senegal or Ghana or Cameroon. So once we understood that also enabled us from the global expansion stuff. We do those projects, managing them with the team we have. We use local labor and logistics. We don't bring a 20-person team over from London to Slovakia to run a project. And I use that as an example because we've done a very large project for IBM out there with 100% reuse. A third of the items stayed in Bratislava. 2/3 went out to School in a Box recipients. So it was 100% reuse with a hybrid of project management from our bit and then local labor and the logistics. So it's a very scalable model that didn't exist when we were trying to do it like competitors, i.e. you need 5 vehicles and you need 5 different teams of fitters, porters, and you need a big warehouse to store stuff. That was actually holding us back, even though that's what everyone else was doing. So we assumed that's what we needed to do.
What's one belief in this industry that you wish more people would challenge?
I think from a social enterprise point of view, there is still a huge awareness gap. People aren't aware of what social enterprises are. They are businesses that exist to do good, to deliver social or environmental impact. They're not charities, although some social enterprises are also charities, as we are. But the key thing is that they're providing a product or service that can deliver on the current or emerging business needs. And there are social enterprises that cover the full gambit: security, cleaning products, toilet paper, project management services, HR, recruitment. There's a whole range of brilliant social enterprises out there. So I think I'd love to see more companies explore their capacity to do good through their procurement and through their supply chain, because they're spending money, and how you spend money is important. And if you can spend that money and be 10%, 15%, 20% more socially impactful whilst getting the products or services that you would have been buying anyway, then to me, that's a no-brainer. So I think, for my advice or homework for anyone watching this, if you haven't got a social impact procurement strategy, is to investigate one. There's obviously a huge amount of commercial benefits as well as operational and social impact benefits as well.
Finally, what is one piece of advice you'd give to another impact founder?
Perseverance and people. Having a great idea is obviously the core. Nothing starts without that initial acorn of an idea. Chuck in the passion and the commitment to 80%, not to 100%, because you don't want to burn yourself out. So the difference is use that 20% to find people that can support your vision. A lot of the much more successful people than me say is find people better than you at the parts of the job that you don't enjoy doing. So absolutely find and develop and grow that team. But as I say, from a social impact point of view, grow the team with people that are ethically and emotively aligned with your vision, rather than just someone who's a crackpot salesperson or a brilliant X, Y, or Z. That only gets you so far. To actually get something really special out of the team is to get the people who get it in here, not just in here.
Yeah, it's funny because you will find some employees that know they're A players and just end up being toxic. And even though they're A players, they make the rest of the culture really bad and the rest of the team perform worse because of it. So for sure.
100%.
How can people get involved with Waste to Wonder, learn more about it?
Yeah, so waste2wonder.com. Find me on LinkedIn as well. We do post both through the Waste Wonder page and through my own. Load of good news stories, filmed case studies showing the recipients and the impact that the work we do is having. And I think the other thing as well is depending where you are, have a look at your sort of local social enterprise movement. So obviously in the UK, we have Social Enterprise UK, which is a brilliant resource, matchmaking effectively between corporates that need a service and social impact suppliers that can deliver it. But first point, get in touch with Waste to Wonder if you've got any clearances, but we're also passionate to talk about sustainability, circular economies, and social impacts as a general theme rather than purely buy from us, please.
Michael, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Chris.